In Plain Sight, a Call of Cthulhu story. The place was a collection of the forgotten, the unwanted, the macabre, and the bizarre. Heavy glass jars were suspended above lamps that cast their light onto malformed grotesques that floated in formaldehyde, their blind eyes and tumorous lips like something out of a half-remembered nightmare. Monstrous creatures leered from pedestals, glaring at those who walked past. Many bore 2 heads, 6 legs, or some other repulsive collection of malformed features, made all the more horrible by the rotting fur that peeled away to show the taxidermist's work. Vicious-looking stone arrowheads hung by creaking cords, stained dark along their chipped edges, and tinkling like wind chimes in the errant breeze.
Are you sure this is where we'll find it?
Susan whispered. This is where Jack said he saw it, Marlin said. There's no need to whisper, Suze. The beasties aren't going to hurt you. Can I be of some assistance? A booming voice asked from behind them. Susan gasped, her hand sliding into the pocket of her dress as she whirled. Marlin put his hand on his arm. Standing before them was a tall man in a dark suit, a cape draped theatrically over his shoulders. He leaned his weight onto a silver-headed cane and grinned at the two of them. I hope so, Marlin said, sliding a friendly smile onto his face as he stepped in front of Susan. My name is Brian Whitlock. I'm working on my graduate thesis on native religious practices at the university. A friend of mine was out here a couple of days ago, and he told me he saw something that would fit right into my studies. The man's smile, if possible, grew wider. Up close, Marlin could see a dusting of stage makeup on his cheeks and around his eyes. He also spied the telltale sides of pads sewn into the cape to create the impression of broader, more imposing shoulders. He lowered his head, bowing over his cane without taking his eyes off of Marlin and Susan. Is that so? The tall man said. Well, my name is Aaron Creedy, and I am the owner of this fine collection. Did your friend tell you what, in particular, had so captured his interest? He didn't recall the name, but he said it was an obsidian dagger, polished smooth with the hilt wrapped in cord, Marlin said. There was other engraving on the stone. He said I would definitely know it when I saw it. Ah, Creedy said, nodding his head slowly. The Kuraji dagger. Come, I'll take you to it. The tall man turned with a dramatic sweep of his cape, tapping his cane as he made his way down one of the narrow walkways in the small museum. Marlin caught Susan's eye. She gave him a humorless grin, and he heard the hammer of the revolver in her dress pocket ease down. She didn't take her hand off of it, though. Turning, they both followed the proprietor of the Museum of Wonders and Oddities. Creedy gestured as he walked, giving his 2 guests the guided tour of his assembled collection. Here was the New Jersey devil calf, transported to Arkham at great expense. There, a clay tablet detailing the human sacrificial practices of the Nashanti people from across the ocean. Overhead, a tattered sail from the little-known pirate ship that had crashed off the coast over 100 years ago, a final remnant on one of the last of the great blackguards of the Gilded Age of Adventure. Marlin didn't know if the man was lying on purpose, or if he genuinely believed anything he was saying, nor did he much care. Still, it was difficult to keep his mouth shut listening to the stream of hogwash and falsehoods. And here we are, Creedy said, tapping the floorboard twice with the iron ferrule of his walking stick, and favoring Marlin and Susan with another of his wide, rictus smiles. The legendary Kuraji dagger itself. Marlin leaned forward, hands on his knees, to peer into the glass case. Inside, held up by 2 carefully carved wooden pegs, was a long piece of obsidian polished to an almost mirror shine. The hilt was wrapped in what looked like severed braids of human hair, and the dangling ends sporting glass beads. Along the side of the blade, though, were bizarre characters and pictograms that resembled nothing so much as the tendrils of some strange, deep-sea creature. Marlin nodded, pursing his lips. Would you allow me to study this object for research purposes? Marlin asked, fishing into his jacket and holding out a sheaf of paper. This is the standard Miskatonic release form, along with insurance to cover any losses or damage while the object is in my care. I am a great supporter of scholarly pursuits, Creedy said, his eyes flashing with greed at the word insurance. Taking the papers, Creedy read with the theatrical frown on his face. The frown deepened and became more real as he reached the end of the third page. The amount of coverage has been left blank. I didn't want to put an insulting price, Marlin said, taking his pen from his pocket and offering it to Creedy. I trust you to know the value of your property, Mr. Creedy. Creedy took the pen and scrawled a figure in the blank. Marlin nodded and signed his false name under the student box. The department chair signature was already present, forged, of course, but present. Creedy hesitated for a moment, but only one. He signed on the dotted line. One copy for you, and one for me, Marlin said, nodding once the ink was dry. Do you have a carrying case for the object? I do, as it happens, Creedy said. Wait here. I'll fetch it from the back room. They watched the tall man vanish through a side door, concealed behind a hanging tapestry. Susan glanced down at the papers.
Man thinks highly of his property,
She said, quietly. If he had any idea what that dagger actually was, he'd have demanded triple the price just to let me look at it, Marlin said. Or he'd be begging me to take it back to Devil's Reef, where it came from. Doesn't matter. It's not like he'll ever see the thing again once this is all over.